This is Norio Hayakawa in the city of Rio Rancho, and today we have a special guest by the name of John Austin, who is from Espanola and who is visiting here in Rio Rancho. But anyway, John Austin has some fascinating experiences while he was growing up in the town of Taos, New Mexico, and I'm going to ask him about his experiences with things like UFO sightings in the Taos area. Tell us about one of your experiences.
So I haven't seen a lot of weird UFO stuff out there. I've seen a few orbs, like white things in the sky just cruising through the sky, kind of look like stars, but they're in the atmosphere. Really high up, no sound, just white, just moving in a straight line. But growing up there, I always wanted to see something, and that's where I initially got really interested in all this stuff. There's a lot of high strangeness out there. I know at least I know of at least three different black triangle sightings out there. One by El Salto. I think a guy was cutting firewood up there and he saw something, looked up and saw it. Another one in the valley going up from Hondo into Valdez, which is where I grew up, overlooks. I grew up on the Rim Road. Supposedly there's a black triangle going up there. And then I have an old friend who lived in an area called Gallina Canyon, which is across from Valdez. And they were hanging out on their trampoline in the early 90s. And they were looking up and they saw a big black triangle float over. Just way up in the sky, just a big blacked out the stars. And him and his little brother and one of their friends saw it when they were all hanging out on their trampoline. So yeah, I've been into this stuff for a long time. I haven't seen too much UFO stuff out there, but I have seen military aircraft out there. One time it was really crazy. This was in 2010. I was living out in Arroyo Seco, and I was in a second-story apartment, and I go out onto my deck, and a freaking big old like transport military aircraft with like 4 engines, one of those huge transport military aircraft, flies pretty much over my apartment, over the fields by my apartment, goes over the road in between the fields and reservation land, then goes over the fence into reservation land. This is all about 40 feet, and goes all the way beeline straight to the Pueblo, flies over the Pueblo, and goes behind Taos Mountain. And that's all restricted. Like, you're not allowed to do that with military aircraft. Like, you're not allowed to do that. And I even met a Native American kid when I was working on a job site out there doing construction, and I asked him about it, and he saw the same thing. He saw it. He saw it fly right over the Pueblo. And it was like, what? Like, you can't do that. You're not allowed to even drive into the Pueblo unless you're welcome, you know? And so I don't know what that was about. Like, you're not allowed to go behind Taos Mountain if you're not Native American. And so I don't know what that was about. But yeah, there's some weird stuff out there, weird high strangeness out there. There's the Taos Hum, which a lot of people know about. And I think that was what you said before, a subterranean. Los Alamos has a patent for it from the 1970s of a subterranean nuclear-powered underground drill that literally melts through the bedrock that it bores through, so it doesn't have to excavate any of the earth, and it glassifies the tunnel that it goes through, and it creates an obsidian tunnel underground. And I think they did that up to Dulce from Los Alamos, and the hum was the vibration through the bedrock from the drilling machine. And that's when they set up an underground rail system from Los Alamos to Dulce, where some employees commute to work in an underground facility out there.
Wow, that is just fascinating. And folks, I'm sure that you have all heard one time or other about the strange Taos hums. especially in the early 1980s, I believe.
And 90s too, early
And
90s too.
also.
People knew about it, and I'm guessing that's when they were building the tunnel underground. And that's a pretty far way, you know. How far is Los Alamos to Dulce, you know? So it's within 100 miles, but it's probably like 60 or some miles, right? Or something. So that's a pretty long way for a rail line. But like I said in one of those earlier videos, I knew a guy that works up at a gas station up there who's seen vents coming out of the ground in the El Vado wilderness. And those could be connected to the rail system.
That's interesting. Speaking of El Vado, that's basically the well-known former radar installation.
Yeah, military air base.
Military air base.
Yep.
That used to be called Tierra Amarilla, some kind of Air Force facility.
Yeah, they had a landing strip. They had multiple story buildings. They had a massive, supposedly, radar installation out there. They had like at the lake, they had like a restaurant and a diner for the military personnel to hang out at. They were the business for the diner at the lake and like a little inn or something. And yeah, I think that place is possibly responsible for bringing down the Aztec UFO crash. They knocked it out of the sky with the so-called radar installation, which could have housed directed energy weapons that are classified and not many people know about, which might have happened at Roswell too. And they brought it down and it crashed in Aztec.
That's fascinating, John. Speaking about the El Vado area, that's not too far from the Dulce area.
Yeah.
Not too far from other lakes like Heron Lake or Stone Lake.
Yeah.
Has there anything been going on in the Heron Lake area?
I mean, I've heard of things. I don't know if it's true or not. I heard supposedly a UFO flew over Stone Lake, and there's an old there's a community out there with a bunch of retirees, and it's like just a bunch of houses where people just hang out. And it's a nice little community, and supposedly, but I just heard this from a kid that lives out there. He was like, yeah, a craft flew out there and freaked out the people and they moved or something. I don't know if that's true or not. I have seen military craft fly over the lake. Another one of those big transport planes literally flew over the lake, over the dam, and then in between the mesas that go out into the Jicarilla reservation land. I saw an osprey fly back there. And one kind of interesting bit of information or history was there was a smuggling plane that was transporting, I think, coke or heroin, and it crashed into Heron Lake. And this was in the 90s or 2000s. And yeah, it went right down in the lake, and there was drugs floating up in the water, and the Forest Service had to come in and confiscate all of it. And there's supposedly still parts of the wreckage at the bottom of the lake. So that happened out there.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for coming to Rio Rancho area all the way from Española, and to let us know about some fascinating stories about that northern New Mexico area, such as Dulce, as well as Taos areas and other locations like Tierra Amarilla area and so on. So definitely New Mexico is really a land of enchantment. Thank you folks for viewing this video. This is Norio Hayakawa reporting once again.